We all have trouble once in a while recognizing what other people need. But for most of us, the bigger problem is trying to decide what to do when another person's needs conflict with our own. Scientists see friendship as an uneasy alliance between people who have different motivations, desires, and points of view. Friends push and pull each other like ballroom dancers. But what starts out as a waltz often ends up as a tug of war between two people, both of whom want to lead, but in opposite directions. As business partners, Aerialists Laura Whitwer and Angela Jones may have an unusual job. But the tensions they experience are all too common.
It's always tricky. It requires a lot of trust. It requires a lot of knowing where the other person is in space, anticipating.
I love Angela. She's the only person that I would trust my life to. But I think at the end of the day, that if Angela and I were not working together, I don't know that we would be friends.
You are never between my legs. You are never between my legs. This is...
Then why was I between you like that?
I think our natural dynamics are kind of like, you know, when you try to stick two magnets together and the polarities are off.
You got caught.
once. I got caught once.
Laura and I are different in about every way possible.
Angela came from the modern dance world, whereas I come from a theatrical background.
I think she sees the world a lot in terms of black and white.
I can't go back over.
And I see a lot of shades of gray.
We can cut it if you want to, but we did it yesterday.
All I know is I do not have time to flip over, pull all that in, and then go.
We fight all the time. Serious knockdown, drag out fights.
I just want to decide one way or the other.
We got into the fight of the century.
But I'm feeling rushed no matter what.
And we turned to each other and said, this is it. This is it. Can't do it.
2 months before the biggest show of their careers, the future of Laura and Angela's relationship looks bleak. Can people avoid these sorts of workplace conflicts? Dr. Richard Hackman, a pioneer in organizational psychology, thinks that under some circumstances, conflict can be a very good thing. He studied how groups, ranging from airline pilots to the CIA, succeed and fail when they try to work together.
Although I do laboratory research, I have spent a lot of time going out into the field to see how groups operate in their real situations.
And now he's studying an unusual kind of orchestra.
Orpheus Chamber Orchestra is very interesting. There's no conductor. There's nobody on the podium. So what can we see about how conflict is managed, how leadership is handled? Here, the group itself is doing all those things that in a traditional orchestra conductor does.
We should decide whether we're going to go yep-a-pop-pop-bum or yep-a-pop-pop-bum.
We can release like a natural way of not screaming it out.
Not a 4, not a 6.
Yeah. I just made a mistake.
Yeah.
I just want some resonance.
All right. Can we do it again? Let's just hear each other, enjoy it without going each part a little bit selfish moment. I'm going to write down something. Not selfish. I don't know.
No one's saying a word about this. Should we go to the end?
Well, yeah.
The biggest single lesson about managing conflict or managing other things that happen in a group would be go toward the conflict rather than away from it. If what I do is to suppress it, to run away from it, to smooth it over, the conflict runs the risk just below the surface of seething and coming out in more destructive fashion later.
As the deadline for their big show approaches, Laura and Angela seek help from a protege of Hackman's, workplace consultant Dr. Ben Datner.
Tell me a little bit how things evolved as far as your respective roles.
When we first started, I was the one who had all the experience in corporate events and things like that, because I knew kind of how it all worked, what they were looking for.
In the beginning, I did feel like Laura was sometimes giving me the jobs that didn't matter so much.
What was it that you felt like you weren't getting from the partnership?
I felt like I wasn't being heard.
Well, she was a doormat. And my natural inclination working on it is as kind of a bulldozer. And then finally,
I think I reached a boiling point.
And she started to push back.
I think one interesting tension that is always present in organizations is balancing the priorities. Laura represents performing. Let's get it done. Angela represents learning. How do we do something new? And those two things are in tension with each other. Have you ever considered doing something like making one of you more in charge of certain performances? What I encourage them to do is realize that if Laura cedes a little bit on the business and Angela cedes a little bit on the creativity, they can actually have a more integrated partnership.
Laura and Angela swap their traditional roles, and for the first time, Angela takes the lead, communicating directly with the client, an airline in El Salvador.
I do want to explain my conference call with El Salvador a little bit because they're doing a relaunch of their company. They want a sense of transformation, rebirth, regrowing. Who has the other white still?
I do.
Okay, this? Yeah. Costumes, put them in your carry-on. There, do we have any kind of protection from the wind at all? If it were here, it would be a lot better. It's going to be out there.
The heat was unreal, and the humidity. And we were told that we were going to be performing inside an airplane hangar. And we were not. We were outside. So it's open to the wind, it's open to the humidity, it is open to bugs.
Do you know, Ed, when we're going to get lights?
I'm really fighting to just shut up and let her do her thing, because she's stressed enough, and I don't think me trying to manage things over top of her is going to help much, but I'm really having to hold back just because I would just...
What did someone say to me once? Everyone's nice until you get to know them. And you just can't get to know a person on a very fundamental level without having a conflict.
We needed perspective. The other person was wrong, dead wrong, all the time. And so much of it was just learning how the other person functions in the world and trying to respect it and not change it.
For me, I try so hard sometimes to change myself.
So just hold until there's a die down of applause.
And what I had to learn is actually just to really listen to myself and stay with my opinion.
When we walked off the stage, I was so happy. For me, it had been more of a kind of a stressful event. But for Angela, it was a real triumph. In the past, I had always been the one to be uber organized, and she wasn't necessarily known for her organization. And so there was a part of me that kind of sat back and watched and was like, well, let's see how this goes. You know, let's see how organized she can be. And wow, she was phenomenal. That was exciting. That was a whole new level of respect that she had gained there.
Yeah.
Both of us have gotten much better about understanding where the other person's coming from and what their motivations are. I feel like underneath it, something has really shifted. And that we have a better understanding of each other overall.
Some people have suggested that it would be great if we could just avoid conflict and have nice, smooth, harmonious group interaction all the time. 1, not possible. 2, be a bad idea, even if it were possible, okay? Because it is in the conflict that we really capture the differences of perspectives that is the reason for having a group in the first place.